right? We manifest our faith and we live according to the guidance of God, knowing that we have to stand before Him. Ultimately, Islam is an organized way of life based on the principles of what we believe, according to the rules and regulations we believe were revealed by God, joining between our mundane lives and our spirituality, joining between this life and the hereafter. This way of life we call Islam. It's all about showing our faith in God, living according to that. And I'll go back, all of Islam goes back to the same universal principles. And I'm telling you this, and I don't care what faith you came up in, I don't care what land you come from, what language you speak, I don't care. The universal message of God, right, whether you accept it or not, is between you and God, right? But the universal message of God is just two things. It's just two things. It's only two things, right? That's it. Establish, protect, and perfect your relationship with God. Establish, protect, and perfect your relationship with creation. Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love for your fellow man that which you love for yourself. Everything else is just there to support these two universal pillars. Right? And with that, I thank you for having me. We're not done because now we get to the part that's really important, your questions. And so hopefully I've given you enough to ask some questions, and hopefully I've already answered a couple of your questions as well. Again, thank you for being patient with me. I don't like to stand behind the podium when I answer questions because I feel as though it's too formal. So if you don't mind. Does anybody have any questions? Someone had to have come tonight with a question in mind before they got here. I can keep talking. No?
I don't have a question, but you talk about Islam, and my family said the purpose of the Qur'an and the Sunnah to give them a little something about the Sunnah that goes with the Qur'an to explain it.
No. So the brother asked about the Qur'an and Sunnah. And so the Qur'an is something that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And perhaps it's better if I stand up so that everyone can see me. I apologize, I'm used to being able to sit. So the Qur'an is the revealed book of God. We believe that it is the divinely revealed speech of God. And so what is said in the Qur'an, though it is pronounced in a language that we can understand and we can recite, ultimately it is the speech of God. It is the speech of God. And it is not the words of any human being, nor is it mixed and muddled, nor has it been changed for 1445 years. Right? The Qur'an has not been changed or altered in any way, but rather it's been protected and preserved. And one of the miracles of the Qur'an that people don't talk about enough is the fact that the Arabic language itself has been protected and preserved in order to protect the Qur'an. So the Arabs, every language changes, every language shifts. Even right now in our own time, English is shifting. You have words added to the dictionary every single year. Right? Words taken from the dictionary every single year. But the Arabic language has been protected and preserved for 1400 years plus. But the fact is it's been protected for 1400 years with the sole intention of preserving the meaning of the Qur'an. Right? And so even though there are dialects of Arabic, Fusha or classical Arabic is preserved, is protected as a means of protecting the Qur'an. And so the Qur'an is we don't just believe that it's the divinely revealed speech of God. We believe that it is protected until the day of judgment. Right? And this is the thing, is that God could have sent a book down on a mountain. He could have sent a book down to, just a people and they found it. But this isn't the way God reveals His books. Rather, He gives them to His messengers. And the reason is because the messenger exemplifies that. He shows how to live that. And so we call the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, the walking Qur'an. He is the living. If you want, and this is prior to Ramadan, I was asked, what was some advice? And one of the advices that I gave was that when you read the Qur'an, Read the Qur'an knowing with certainty that this is the best book to explain to you who is the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. How did he live? How was he? Because this is the first book of biography of the Prophet. This is the first book of the character of the Prophet, because his character was the Qur'an. And again, if I go on with that, then it'll be too long. So what I want to say here is that the Prophet exemplified his role, his duty, his job. The reason that he was brought forth is that he could exemplify the message. And so I will get into a little bit of what do we call it? Inshallah, controversy, but I don't mean it to be. One of the things that Muslims absolutely firmly believe, this is a foundational belief for the Muslims, right? And I know it differs with other people, but for the Muslims this is just solid and it's foundational. We believe that every single prophet and messenger was divinely protected from sin. They were not able to disobey God. What is a sin? Sin is choosing, willfully choosing to disobey God. Right? And every prophet was protected, divinely protected, from ever disobeying God. Right? They were sent with a duty, a purpose, and that purpose was to exemplify, to show the message, to show how to live it, to show how to understand it properly, and to put it, give it life in your life. And so this word sunnah, right? This we translate sunnah as prophetic tradition. It means the lifestyle, the way that the Prophet ﷺ did things or didn't do things, the way he spoke, the way he carried himself, the way he treated other people. All of this is the sunnah, or the prophetic tradition. And so the Qur'an and the prophetic tradition, they go hand in hand, they complement each other. There's a difference because the prophetic traditions are recorded by man, and so they're faulty, so they have to be verified. Right? But the Qur'an is divinely revealed from God, and there is no fault in it. There is no harm in it. This has the same author that the universe around us has. And alhamdulillah, my mind is going places because there's beautiful ayats to explain what I'm saying, but I want to get to other questions if there are any. But what I'll say is that God says to us in the Qur'an, He says, go out and look at the universe. Go look and see if there's any flaws. Right? Go look again and again. And your eyes will come back to you exhausted. You're not going to find any flaws in this creation. It's the same way, the same author who created this creation created or revealed the Qur'an. So there's no flaws in the Qur'an. But how do we understand it? How do we live it? How do we manifest it? We do that according to the prophetic model or the prophetic traditions. And so the prophetic traditions give us the example of how to be. And again, I told you I'm long-winded. I could talk all night, right? So I'm going to wrap this question up now. But I'm going to use that to go back to what I was saying about the universal model, or the universal message that every prophet was sent with, right? So, how are we with God, right? How are we with God? That has to be on the basis of what God told us to be. Right? So how are we with God? We find that through the Qur'an. How do we know God? We only know God by God. And so we look to what God told us about Himself so that we can know Him. But how are we with creation? How are we with the animals? How are we with the planet? How are we with our fellow man? Right? For that we look to the example of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And so this allows us what is our relationship with God and what is our relationship with our fellow man. That is the Qur'an and that is the Sunnah. No problem. No problem. Any other questions? You said something about original sin? Okay, so this is a wonderful and powerful question, and also a controversial one. No, it's okay. This is an important question, and so the question is, do we as Muslims believe in the original sin? And what I'll say about this is that not only do we not believe in the original sin, but no prophet in the Bible, not a single prophet in the Bible, not one prophet in the Bible, Old Testament or New Testament, ever taught original sin, or ever taught that a child is born in sin due to his father. In fact, in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament, every single prophet says that the father is not blamed for the sins of the son, nor the son the sins of the father, nor the mother for the sins of the daughter, nor the daughter for the sins of the mother. Right? So we are all accountable before God for our own deeds, not for the deeds of our ancestors, not for what someone else has done. Right? And so we don't accept original sin. What's more is that from our tradition, Adam, so this is actually, again, these are, I love the questions because the questions, you know, they're important, but the problem is that I talk too much. We believe, what is the difference? What does it mean to be human? And what does it mean to be satanic? Right? What does it mean to be satanic? So, what is the original sin? What's the original sin? The original sin is a type of racism, right? The original sin is materialism. The original sin is that God commanded all of the angels to bow down to Adam. And amongst them there was a being named Iblis. And Iblis refused to bow down. And before somebody says, I thought you said angels can't disobey God. Iblis wasn't an angel, he was a jinn. I don't want to get into that unless you ask the question. Right? So Iblis refused to bow down. Right? That was the original sin. God commanded him bow down and he refused. And what he did, because out of that, he blamed God. He blamed God. And he blamed Adam. And he said, I'm going to show that I'm right, he's wrong. Right? And why did I say it's racism? Because he said, look, he's made of earth and clay, I'm made of fire, I'm better than him. The stuff I'm made of, my appearance, what I am is better than what he is. Right? So he's only looking at the outward. He didn't know the inward. And the inward is that Adam had a special place with God, and God taught him the name of all things. And so Iblis refused to bow down to Adam, and in fact, again, he lashed out at God. He lashed out blaming God. He lashed out blaming Adam. And he said that he would prove himself to be right by leading mankind to the fire of hell. Now, after that happened, Adam also made a mistake. He forgot God's command. God told him, do not eat from this tree. And he forgot, and he was tricked, and he ate from the tree. And what did he do? In our tradition, what Adam did is that when he ate from that tree, he realized his error. He saw that he was wrong. He remembered, oh, I was commanded not to do this, and I did it. God, please forgive me. Right? And he was forgiven. And so here, the difference, the satanic, is that when you do something wrong, you blame somebody else, you lash out, you make it somebody else's fault. Oh God, why are you doing this to me? Right? But the Adamic, the human way of doing it, is that when we make a mistake, when we err, we recognize the wrong that we did and we turn back to God and seek His forgiveness. We believe in Islam that Adam turned back to God in repentance and God forgave him. And when God forgives, it's an absolute forgiveness. And so there's nothing that can carry on to the descendants of Adam because he was forgiven for his sins. And even if something were to carry on, as every prophet taught in the Old Testament, the New Testament, as well as the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, the son is not blamed before God for the errors of the father. Right? The son is not guilty of the sins of the father. And so this is our stance on the original sin. Any other questions? Thank you all for coming and thank you for being patient. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, please. So this is actually, earlier today I said that Islam is not the religion of peace. Thank you so much. Right? Earlier tonight I said Islam is not the religion of peace. And so the question often is asked, well, what is it then? Right? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon us, he told us this. He said that every single religion, every deen, every way of life has its primary characters, khuluq, yani its primary character trait, that which it is known for. And the primary character trait of Islam is modesty. It's shyness. It's shame. Haya, this Arabic word, it contains all three of these: modesty, shyness, and shame. And so Islam is really the religion, it's the way of life of modesty. This is the primary character trait of Islam. is that we are people of modesty. We are modest. We have shyness in the way that we carry ourselves, in the way that we cover ourselves, in the way that we speak, in the way that we interact. Our way of life is one of etiquette and upright conduct. But at the height of etiquette, is that we are a people of modesty. Right? And so this is absolutely true. One of the greatest, there's also a prophetic narration where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and again, sometimes I get myself into trouble and it's okay, but he said that one of the signs that God wants ruin for a people is He removes from them modesty. And so when we see modesty being removed from a community, from a people, from a place, it should cause fear in our hearts. It should cause a yearning to turn back to God, because this is a sign that the mercy of God is being removed from us. When we find people bereft of shyness, bereft of shame, bereft of modesty, know that there is a loss of mercy, there is a loss of compassion, there is a loss of faith. And another prophetic narration, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he said, faith and modesty are like two strands of the same braid. When one of them comes loose, the other one comes loose as well. And so if you want to strengthen your modesty, you must strengthen your faith. And if you want to strengthen your faith, you must strengthen your modesty. And if you lose your modesty, you're going to lose your faith. And we witness that when people lose their faith, they lose their modesty. They go hand in hand. And our society is in desperate need of modesty, of a return to modesty. And therefore it's also in a desperate need of a return to faith. Yes, ma'am?
Thank you. Please help me understand. I thought Islam was a religion of peace.
So
Please help me understand what you meant by what you said.
no problem. So let me be very clear here, and this is why I said I get myself into trouble, right? So Islam is a way of life where we want peace, right? But we're not a pacifistic religion. And so if injustice, we are commanded, as Muslims, we are commanded to stand out for justice. In the Qur'an, God tells us, stand out for justice even against your own self, even against yourself, or against your nearest relatives. Right? And so we are a people, when people are being oppressed, when injustice is happening, we're not supposed to sit on our hands and wish and hope and say, you're in my hopes and prayers. No, we're supposed to be active. We're supposed to do something to end the oppression and restore justice again. It's the role of the Muslim to be a source of justice in the land, a source of peace. But peace can only be had when oppression comes to an end. No problem. I know the brothers are anxious, sisters as well, to break our fast. So any other questions, you can just pull me up. I'm here until you leave, inshallah. Thank you again for coming, and thank you for being patient with me. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings be upon all of you.